Most players in Squid Game die within the first few minutes, but there are 7 players who have what it takes to win the games, and some of them came extremely close. So today I'm going over every Squid Game player that could have beat Squid Game, and the real reason they didn't, starting with the most annoying one. Gi-hun proved you can win Squid Game by building friendships and being human. He's the guy who actually won Season 1, but not because he was the strongest, smartest, or even most ruthless player in the competition. Gi-hun was a divorced father and gambling addict who joined the games to pay off his debts and support his family. When he first walked into that arena, he had no special skills, no master plan, and definitely no killer instinct. What he did have was something way more powerful than any of that stuff. He formed bonds with other players, read people really well, and made huge sacrifices for others even when it put his own life at risk. While other contestants were stabbing each other in the back, Gi-hun was building genuine relationships that actually helped him survive. His empathy became his superpower, and this actually matters a lot for an unexpected reason. When you're nice to people and they trust you, they share information with you. They help you out when you're in trouble. They watch your back during the deadly games. Gi-hun survived because other players genuinely cared about him and wanted him to make it. Take the marble game, for example. Most players were trying to trick their partners or find ways to cheat. Gi-hun was so honest with his old man partner that even when he had to choose between winning and losing, he couldn't bring himself to fully deceive someone who trusted him. Even though he did deceive him quite a bit, he was nowhere near as bad as other players. But that's exactly what made him different from everyone else. He wasn't just playing to win, he was playing to stay human. And weirdly enough, that's what got him to the final game. Though when Gi-hun came back in Seasons 2 and 3, his whole approach changed. Now he wasn't trying to win for himself anymore. He wanted to end the games completely. His strategy became way more reckless because he was willing to sacrifice his own chances of winning if it meant saving other people. His knowledge of the system from winning before gave him a huge advantage. He knew what was coming, he understood how the games worked, and he had experience dealing with the psychological pressure. But his moral hesitations often put him at risk because he kept trying to save people instead of focusing on his own survival. The crazy part is that Gi-hun's strengths, his empathy, his ability to form alliances, his willingness to make sacrifices, these are exactly the qualities that could win Squid Game again and again. He survives by reading people, building trust, and making hard choices, but he also adapts his strategy as the games progress. Now, what was the real reason Gi-hun didn't win again? His humanity. Gi-hun sacrificed himself for player 222's baby because he made a promise and proved the games didn't break him. But if you thought Gi-hun giving up the win was frustrating, the next player could have beaten every single game with ease. But In-ho is basically unbeatable because he designed the entire system. This isn't just some regular contestant we're talking about. This guy is a former winner who became the mastermind running everything behind the scenes. In-ho actually won a previous Squid Game before any of the seasons we watched. After he won, instead of taking his money and disappearing, he became the front man, the person in charge of organizing and running future games. As he's the brother of police officer Jun-ho, and he operates behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly. In Season 1, he was the guy in the mask giving orders to all the guards, but in Season 2, he did something absolutely insane. He snuck back into the games as a fake player named Oh Young-il, just to mess with Gi-hun's plans to rebel against the system. Think about how crazy that is. The person running the entire operation disguised himself as a regular contestant and played alongside everyone else. He knew every game that was coming, every rule, every secret passage, every weakness in the system. It's like playing poker when you can see everyone's cards, know what's in the deck, and you're also the dealer. In-ho knows exactly what's coming next and how to survive it. He understands the psychology behind each game because he helped design them. He knows which strategies work and which ones get you killed. If In-ho was actually competing again as a real contestant, nobody else would stand a chance. His experience from winning before, combined with his complete knowledge of how everything works, makes him unstoppable. But here's the really scary part. In-ho has access to resources that regular players don't. He could theoretically give himself advantage during the games. He knows which guards might help him, which areas are safe, and how to manipulate situations to his benefit. The only way In-ho could lose is if there was a massive coordinated revolt against him, or if someone exposed his true identity during the games. But even then, his experience and strategic mind would let him anticipate and counter most threats. He's not just a former winner, he's the architect of the entire system. That makes him the most dangerous person who could ever step foot in those games. But if you thought having inside knowledge was unfair, the next player had natural skills that made her a killing machine. Hyunju's military training made her the most dangerous player in any combat situation. She's a former Special Forces soldier who joined the games in Season 2 because of financial hardship and her need for gender-affirming surgery. When we talk about someone being prepared for Squid Game, Hyunju is exactly what that looks like. Her military background gave her skills that most people could never develop. She's disciplined, she can stay calm under extreme pressure, and she knows how to make life or death decisions quickly. During Season 2, she used her tactical training to protect her allies and navigate the deadly rounds. The hide-and-seek game in Season 3 was where her skills really showed.
아니 어떻게 이렇게 총에 대해 잘 알아요?
특전사 중사였어요.
While other players were panicking and running around randomly, Hyunju was thinking like a soldier. She could read the environment, plan escape routes, and execute strategies that kept everyone alive. Her physical fitness and combat training meant she could handle situations that would get other players killed instantly. But here's the crazy part. Hyunju could have easily won the whole thing if she just focused on saving herself instead of protecting other people. Every time she had a choice between advancing her own position and helping someone else, she chose to help. Her combat training, discipline, and ability to stay calm under pressure gave her every advantage you could want in Squid Game. She could outfight almost any other contestant. She could outthink most of the strategic challenges. She had the mental toughness to handle the psychological pressure. And the problem was her heart. Hyunju was too good of a person. She kept putting herself at risk to save her friends and allies. In the end, she literally sacrificed her own chance at survival to save other people. And that's what got her killed. But if you thought being a trained soldier was impressive, the next contestant had a completely different approach. Pure intelligence and zero emotions nearly got Sang-woo the win. This guy was once a successful investment banker, before financial ruin and legal trouble forced him into the games. But his background in high-stakes finance actually prepared him perfectly for Squid Game. Sang-woo approached every situation like a business problem that needed to be solved. He could analyze each game, figure out the optimal strategy, and execute it perfectly without letting emotions get in the way. While other players were crying, panicking, or trying to be heroes, Sang-woo was making cold, calculated decisions. He manipulated Ali during the marble game by pretending to be his friend and then stealing his marbles at the last second. He killed Se-byok when she was wounded and vulnerable because he knew she might beat him in the final game. He made it all the way to the final round by betraying everyone around him without thinking twice. Sang-woo was basically a human computer. He could figure out the best strategy for any situation and execute it perfectly, even if it meant hurting people he had known since childhood. His intelligence let him see patterns and solutions that other players missed completely. During the glass bridge game, he used his knowledge and observation skills to help figure out which panels were safe. In the tug of war, he came up with strategies that helped his team win against stronger opponents. Every game was just another puzzle for him to solve. His approach to alliances was purely strategic, too. He would team up with people when it benefited him and drop them the second they became a liability. He understood that Squid Game wasn't about friendship or loyalty. It was about being the last person standing. The scary part is how close he came to winning. He made it to the final game against Gi-hun, and he probably would have won if he had just maintained his cold, calculating approach all the way through. But that's where his strategies backfired. Sang-woo isolated himself so much that guilt started eating him alive. He realized that he had become a monster, and when he was faced with the choice of killing his childhood friend or losing everything, he couldn't go through with it. His only mistake was letting his emotions finally catch up with him at the worst possible moment. If he had managed his relationships more carefully and not completely alienated Gi-hun, he might have convinced his rival to split the prize or found another way to win. But if you thought Sang-woo was cold, the next player will shock you. Thanos had the perfect mindset for Squid Game because he had zero moral boundaries and actually enjoyed the violence. This rapper entered the games after losing money in crypto, and he blamed fellow contestant Myung-gi for his financial ruin. From the moment Thanos stepped into the first game, he was different from everyone else. While other players were terrified and trying to figure out what was happening, Thanos was having fun. When the first person got eliminated in red light, green light, most people froze in horror. But Thanos? He reached for the candies hidden in his cross necklace and got high. Once those candy kicked in, His fear disappeared completely, and that's when things got really scary. Thanos pushed 3 players lined up in front of him to their deaths, and this was before he even knew that more eliminations meant more prize money. He just did it because he could. That kind of mindset is actually perfect for surviving Squid Game. While other contestants were dealing with guilt, fear, and moral dilemmas, Thanos was treating the whole thing like a video game. He didn't hesitate to eliminate threats. He didn't waste time feeling bad about his choices. He just did whatever it took to advance. Thanos also had serious leadership skills. He quickly formed a team called Thanos World and got people to follow his commands.
Hey, 거기도 찍어줄게. 일로 와요. Come on.
He was aggressive, charismatic, and completely self-serving, which made him effective at building alliances that benefited him. During the voting scenes, he was probably the most excited person to continue the games. He literally bounced his way to the voting machine and kissed the O button. While other players were torn between wanting to leave and wanting the money, Thanos had no internal conflict at all. His candy use gave him an insane advantage because it removed his fear and moral hesitations. He could make brutal decisions without second-guessing himself. He could eliminate people without feeling guilty about it later. The combination of leadership skills and complete lack of empathy could have easily carried him to the final game. He understood that Squid Game rewarded people who were willing to do whatever it took to win. But his aggression and confrontational style also made him a target. He got into fights with other contestants, including Myung-gi, and his violent behavior made him enemies. Eventually, his past caught up with him when Myung-gi killed him in their final confrontation. If Thanos had just toned down his aggression slightly and focused on building strategic partnerships instead of picking fights, he probably would have survived much longer. His mindset was perfect for the games, but his execution made him too many enemies. But if you thought being a psycho was the key, the next player proved you wrong. Sae-byuk's stealth and street smarts kept her alive way longer than most players, and she did it without making many enemies. Sae-byuk was like a ghost in the games. She smuggled a knife into the competition, avoided drawing attention to herself, and survived through pure strategy instead of a luck or violence. While other players were forming big alliances or picking fights, she was quietly observing everything and planning her next move. Her approach was completely different from everyone else. She didn't try to be a leader like Thanos. She didn't manipulate people like Sang-woo. She didn't build friendships like Gi-hun. Instead, she stayed in the background and let other players make the big moves while she focused on staying alive. This strategy worked incredibly well for most of the games. In red light, green light, she positioned herself carefully and moved at the right times. During the honeycomb game, she used her knife to carefully extract her shape without breaking it. In tug of war, she contributed to her team's strategy without taking charge. Sae-byuk was also incredibly resourceful. Growing up as a defector had taught her how to survive in impossible situations. She knew how to go unnoticed, how to find opportunities that others missed, and how to stay calm when everything was falling apart. Her street smarts came from real experience dealing with life or death situations outside the games. She understood how dangerous people operated because she had dealt with them before. She could read situations and people in ways that other contestants couldn't. The crazy part is how close she came to winning. She made it all the way to the final 3 players before Sang-woo killed her while she was wounded and vulnerable. If she had just been more careful around Sang-woo, or if she'd formed a stronger alliance with Gi-hun earlier, she probably would have made it to the final game. Her biggest weakness was that she was too trusting at crucial moments. She let her guard down around Sang-woo because she thought they were allies. If she had maintained her cautious approach all the way through, she could have avoided that fatal mistake. Sae-byuk proved that you don't need to be the strongest, smartest, or most ruthless player to almost win Squid Game. Sometimes being invisible and letting other people destroy each other is the best strategy. But if you thought being sneaky was smart, wait until you see what the next contestant was willing to do. Myung-gi's ability to adapt and manipulate people made him one of the most dangerous late-game players in the entire series. This former YouTuber and crypto influencer entered the games after losing everything in a failed investment that also ruined other contestants' lives. Myung-gi was basically a human chameleon. He could become whatever type of person he needed to be to survive each situation. When he needed to seem helpless and harmless, he could do that. When he needed to be aggressive and threatening, he could switch to that instantly. His background as a social media influencer actually prepared him perfectly for the psychological aspects of Squid Game. He understood how to read people, how to manipulate their emotions, and how to present himself in whatever way would get him what he wanted. During Season 3, we saw his true skills come out. He survived by betraying allies when it benefited him. He killed rivals, including Thanos, when they became threats. He constantly changed his strategy based on what was happening around him and who he needed to align with. The scariest part about Myung-gi was how good he was at hiding his true intentions. Other players thought they could trust him right up until the moment he'd stab them in the back. He could maintain fake friendships and alliances for as long as they were useful. His arc showed just how far he was willing to go to win. After his ex-girlfriend Junhee died and their child was born, he became even more desperate and dangerous. He was willing to betray anyone, kill anyone, and do absolutely anything to get that prize money. By the end, Myung-gi was attempting to kill even his own child and Gi-hun to secure his victory.
그러지 마.
That level of desperation and complete lack of moral boundaries made him incredibly dangerous in the final stages of the competition. His adaptability meant he could survive situations that would eliminate other players. When the games became more cutthroat and alliances started falling apart, Myung-gi thrived because he had no loyalty to anyone except himself. The only reason he didn't win was that his increasing desperation and isolation made other players see through his act. If he had just maintained his fake friendships a little longer and concealed his true motives better, he probably would have manipulated his way to victory. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every time Myung-gi was a crazy psycho, click the video on the screen.